There's a lot of parallel between the election in the United States and the election in Canada. It's eerie. I'll forget some of the parallels, but I'll give you a few. Donald Trump is a Gemini sun. Pierre Poilievre is a Gemini sun, conjunct Mercury, by the way, in Gemini. In perhaps his 12th house, I rectified his chart to a Cancer rising after doing a ton of research on his life. But without knowing his rising, we'll just skip that part for now and say that we see the parallel between the two Gemini leaders, right? Two suns in Gemini. For both Donald Trump and Pierre Poilievre, in June of 2024, Venus came into the heart of the sun, which is a blessing, right on the sun of Mark Carney, right on the star Aldebaran, the eye of the bull, which is a beautiful star for success, mastery, and mastery of communication and being able to succeed in power. So Aldebaran, the eye of the bull, that star is on the sun of Pierre Poilievre. And when Venus joined the sun in June 4th of 2024, it gave him a blessing on his sun. Now, the same blessing also came to Trump, but not right on his sun, but further away, but still up there with Sun, Uranus, North Node for Donald Trump. Second of all, and that Venus star point happens every year in June anyway. It's part of the United States election cycle, but it's just interesting for Pierre Poilievre because it happened on his sun, which represents the part of your chart, this career and leader. And his sun is conjunct Mercury, and Mercury represents not just communication, but people who are young. And so there's a blessing for him with youth and power coming off the Venus star point of June of last year, which is still kind of unfolding through the sky as a possible narrative, particularly until March 22nd, when the next star point happened. So it fueled his rise to this position of competing in this election. Now, another parallel is Kamala Harris was dealing with her 12th house profection age, a difficult age about endings and completions. And then she had her birthday in October and then the election. She moved into her first house age. That should have felt good. I thought maybe that would be a good thing for her. But I recognize in hindsight that when we begin something under the influence of an ending, if you're a numerologist, I think a lot of you know, you shouldn't start something in a 9-year, right? Because it's all going to be a false start. You're here to close doors, complete, tidy up loose ends. And so Carney announced his candidacy and rose to the leader of the Liberal Party in a 12-year. Right? And as for him, is ruled by Mars, ending, cutting, and severing. I'll show you his chart in a minute. And literally that is not positive because even though now, as of his birthday in March, after the election began, or, after he was winner of the Liberal Party race, he still has that same thing that Kamala had, starting something and ending cycle and then having it fizzle out. It could be fizzling out. Number 3, when Mark Carney said, I'm going to announce this, election, we're going to put the election in place. He made the announcement to call for a quick election, a snap election. During the retrograde Mars and the retrograde Venus. Not only was it a retrograde Venus, she was combust the sun, deeply invisible, just coming out of her gazemi. Now, invisible Venus is just that, invisible, but she's also retrograde. Mercury's retrograde. Mercury rules ballots. Venus rules popular public appeal in women. Both were retrograde. And at the time, and I said this in 3 separate videos, this is inauspicious. It shouldn't have been done because what it means that whatever momentum he had going into the announcement of the election, which was becoming formidable, by the way, it would turn back around and go in the opposite direction, as retrogradations are about turning back the other way and going back. So what was going one way turns around and goes another direction. Indeed, what has happened is we have seen that happen. We've seen that the gap at one point, maybe 8 to 10 point lead for the Liberals, has been doing this ever since Venus and Mercury stationed from retrogradation into direct motion. And as those things have happened, both planets, Mercury and Venus, we have seen this gap between the Liberals and Conservatives close. And now, 2 days before the election, it's neck and neck. Now, someone criticized me and said the Conservatives have never been far ahead in the polls. That's not true. There have been some polls that have had the Conservatives eking forward by 1 to 2 or 3 degrees. Okay, or a margin of error. And there are other polls by different pollsters that have the opposite. like the 3 or 4 degrees ahead or more for the Liberal Party. So I did not make that up. But the point is, the mean poll, average poll, the gap has gone like this. And now in some polls are tied, and some polls are like 1 or 2 points ahead, apart from each other. The Liberals 2 points ahead. 2 points is a margin of error. That doesn't matter. In other words, it's not enough to call a winner. Second of all, on those polling things, I want to mention there's something called polling bias error. It's hard to account for. It depends on your sample size. Depends on where you're sampling. It depends on if there's a bias called the shy poller, like someone calls up a conservative, they pretend that they're going to vote Liberal. Second thing is that the Liberal Party people who want to vote for them will be a lot of retirees, a lot of boomers, a lot of people have downtime, they're home a lot, they pick up the phone. The conservative constituency are young people, probably working their ass off at a day job, but also it's the working class, the working guy, the everyday laborer type of thing. They've got a lot of labor unions now endorsing them. And those guys are in the middle of work. Like the plumber's not going to pick up the phone at the toilet for a poll, or doesn't have the time to do the punching their answers into a poll. So you'll have polling bias also. So we really don't know what's going to happen. Blue wave, right? Like you guys were looking for we're different than you. So in Canada, the red color goes with the Liberal Party and the blue color goes with the Conservative Party. So we call it a blue wave. We may have a blue wave. We may have a blue minority wave at this time. Or not. We'll see. But we may have polling bias mistakes and errors that have not accounted for a swell of voters at the blue or the Conservative level. There are massive rallies, and it's not Trump. Canadians can have massive rallies, and it's not MAGA. No one's wearing a hat, guys. We're just having thousands and thousands and thousands of people show up at Pierre Poilievre's rallies. Not enough room. People they're not getting in. And this has been increasingly so in the last month since Venus and Mercury turned direct. And that's not happening for Mark Carney. And Mark Carney has the boomers anyway. They're not out there going to rallies anyway. Boomers are like, I'll stay home. So it's really interesting. It's very, very tight race. So tight, so tight.